Hello everyone. I'd like to take a look at how to create a histogram with the direct approach in Excel. So you have a set of data and you have a title for it. I was calling it data set. In order to create a histogram, you have to decide how many classes you want. Now normally you should create somewhere between 5 and 20 classes depending on how much data you have. In this case I only have 25 pieces of data, and just for demonstration purposes I'm going to choose to do it in 4 classes. But you should try different kinds, 5, 10, depending on how much data you have. And if you have a lot of data, your graph is going to look entirely different if you make a smaller number of classes as opposed to a larger number of classes. But stay within that range of 5 to 20 to be able to give a fairly decent picture of what your data looks like. In order to do this, you need the minimum and you need the maximum value of your data. So the first thing you're going to do is to click on this one. You're going to type in min, and then you're going to highlight. You take your mouse and just highlight these, and that will find the minimum for you. The same is true for the max. If you type equals max and then highlight the set of data that you're looking for, you'll get the max. The range is going to be simply the max value, which is found in cell E4, minus the minimum value, which is found in E3. My class limits then, I look at this and I've got about 34. If I go by, I can go by any numbers that I want. There is a standard procedure for doing this. Usually you'll take the range, divide by how many classes you want, and that'll tell you what your class width should be. In my particular case, since it is so small, I'm going to pick a starting point of -25. Technically, you should start at the minimum value, -23, if you're going to do it absolutely mathematically correct. So I'm going to use a bin width of 10. Now remember, bin width is not from the lower to the upper limit. It's from one limit to the next, to the next, to the next. So I start at -25, and then I add 10 to it, -15, add another 10, another 10. And I'm just going to put this one down because I'm going to use it for my calculations. It's not one of the bins. My upper limit should be one unit less than whatever the data is in the next class, because I want to make sure that I collect all of the data and don't miss anything. This is a little bit more challenging if the data has decimal values in it, and you have to be very careful with this. I'm going to want, for my graphing purposes, for putting information on this, is the midpoints. And so the midpoints are calculated as taking the lower limit plus the upper limit and dividing by 2. Make sure you put this in parentheses for the order of operations to be followed correctly. Once I get that, I may not have these other values here, but all I have to do is highlight the first value, put my mouse in the lower corner, and copy, and the formulas are all there. To find the frequency, I could just go through and count if I want, if it's a small group. But if I don't, I'm going to use one of my count functions. Here I'm using the countifs function. You can really use just the plain countif function. My range is from B3 through B27, as you can see here. It's the set of data. My condition is in quotes less than or equal to, and what do I want to compare it to? H5, which is this upper limit. Now, in order to get the rest of these, if I just do that, I will get all the values less than -4, but I want to subtract the 7 here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract, and so that I can copy this formula down, I'm going to write sum of J5 through J5. The first J5 is going to be a constant, so that's why I put $signs on it, and the J5 is not. Now, I don't need these. What if these weren't filled already? I just simply select this one, copy down the formula, and it automatically adjusts my formula to meet my new question. So I don't have to retype it every time. I always do a sum total because I want to make sure that my frequency, my formulas that I use, calculate correctly, so I did that. Now, how do I create this histogram? Well, once you have all this data collected, it's a matter of taking this frequency and inserting a two-dimensional graph from here. Now, it doesn't look like much yet, but if I click on this any one of these and then right-click, make sure they're still selected, and I choose Format Data Series, this will show up And if I change the gap widths, they automatically become a histogram. If I then come here and make a solid line between them and change the width a bit, I now have a graph that I can really sort of look at here, okay? Now, the difference here between this is the labels. I need to have some labels on this. First of all, I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to actually type in my title, whatever that is. In this case, it might be histogram of my data set, whatever histogram of, and you would state what you're talking about. Now down here, you notice it goes 1, 2, 3. What I really want is a label that makes some sense. And so if I click down here on the graph and click on Select Data, I will click on Edit, and instead of using the range that it used 1, 2, 3, I will click on these values for midpoints and click OK. And now my graph is an OK again, and now my graph's labeled with the midpoints of each class. I also want a label down at the bottom of this frequency, and so I will do that by, in the chart tools, I will add a chart element, access primary, and that will put on a primary. It doesn't show it, but it should. Let's see if we're good here. Chart tools, add access titles, there it is, primary horizontal, and I can type in here and type it what I want, what I'm representing, and then I can go back to chart tools and I can do chart elements, add a title again, and do a vertical title. And this completes how to do a direct approach to create a histogram. I suggest you look at this a couple times, stop it in between, do what you need to do so that you can create and follow the steps. Thank you.